Hi there, this afternoon we're going to do a front entrance fine tuning. So let's just start off and see, look for some challenges here. Oh, I feel the door handle. There's a lot of pressure on that latch. What could be causing that? Ah, there we go, it opened. Oh, I see here. Lots of weather stripping. You see the original vinyl clad weather stripping, and then behind that, oh, all sorts of surprises here. It looks like there was an air leak and the homeowner tried to fix with adding some more weather stripping. Let's see whether or not that was actually the ideal solution. Okay, why don't we start off? We need to release this door, so we have the slide bolts here. This one seems to work okay. And then we go down to the bottom, and even though I put some WD-40 on it, this one seems to be super stiff, and I don't think I'm going to be able to release that, so I'll have to just stop the video for a second, put some more WD-40 or other lubricant on, and see if we can release that. Okay, we'll be back in a second. What we had here was a fully rusted slide bolt, such that I could not even release the slide bolt even with WD-40 and a hammer and screwdriver. So the way to solve that is I had to use some very fine handiwork to cut right through the bolt in order to get the door open so I could carry on. Now we can see here that somebody has been here before me and has not really, has very carelessly let the channel for the slide bolt, and that's really one of the reasons why this door became a problem, because the owner tried to stop the draft, and we can see that the draft would come in from underside, circulate around this, and then bypass the weather stripping, always aggravating them. There was always a leak, so that's why they started packing the door more and more, and we can see the volume of packing materials and weather stripping they used to try and solve the problem. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the door off the hinges, take this out because we can't release it until we have the door fully off, and I'm going to let in a piece of wood which I've just custom milled, and here it is. We're going to let a piece of, in this case it appears to be maple, which is great for what I want to do here. It's not outside, it's actually inside the door. We're going to actually let this in, cut the neaten out the we're going to cut out the door frame, let this piece of solid wood in, and then reset a new slide bolt. So here we're off to that. That one released fairly easily. And then we go to the last one. Okay. Now we can use a screwdriver and pull them out the rest of the way. Let's set those aside where they're not going to get lost, right at the edge of the room. 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now we can remove the door. Okay, not too bad. I'm rattling around because this slide I've made is for up to 2-inch doors, so I use a piece of shim to tighten it up so it doesn't wiggle around while I'm working on the door. Okay. Now, we see that we have to remove the bottom weather stripping. We'll need another screwdriver. You can see the threshold weather stripping still has good veins on it, so we don't need to replace that. They're all in good shape here, they're not torn. Okay, and as before, let's get all our hardware to the side of the room where we're not going to misplace it or get it kicked around and lost. There, that's out of the way. Now, we'll pull off all the existing weather stripping. It comes out of a spline here. The spline fits into the channel in the door that's been milled at the factory. And you can see there's a staple that holds that in. The staple is heavily rusted. So we'll remove the staple. There. Let's be nice and easy and get this out of our way so we don't trip on it. Okay, we can take off this other weather stripping here. Also not necessary if you have a door set properly. Once again, out of the way. And there's some residue there we need to take off. So now we can come down and expose the slide bolt. There's one more screw here that's almost out by itself. And you can see the balance of the slide bolt that I cut off because this is totally rusted solid because of the salt in around the bottom of the door. And that'll become garbage. Okay. So now, I've prepared in advance a piece of milled wood. We're going to let that into the door, and then we're going to recut into the door to allow for the new slide bolt. So that'll take me a few minutes. Okay. So I want to trace around. I'll just check dimension first. 7/8, and then the widest part is 1 1/8 inches. So here we have 1 1/4 inches, and we have 1 1/8 inches. I'm going to go a little bit deeper and maintain this width. So I'll set it like that. Okay, very good. Actually, I'm going to reverse that. You will find that if you rotate the pencil as you use it, you're not going to get flat spots, and you'll get a better mileage out of your pencil. Okay, now we want to chisel that square and to the bottom of the depth here, and then we'll let in this new piece of wood and we'll glue it. Here we are with a nice chisel set. Sharp tools, always the only thing to use. And we'll just start off and mark along the line. Get your line first. Leaving the pencil line. Now be careful to go with the grain, not against the grain, otherwise it will split out. see if I have one more chisel. It's a bit narrower. So I've been using 3 chisels, a 1/4, a 3/4, and an inch for this job. The metal, so to gauge my depth, I need to be going a bit deeper than that. Okay, I want to be going a wee bit deeper again to make sure we have good contact with the plug. We're very close now. Finish off by hand. You can see the metal of the wrap of the door there. We can't cut through that. We want to aim as flat a bottom as we can so the glue has good purchase. And the plug is a wee bit tight here. So okay. Okay, that's just about right. Now what I have to do is take the corner off here because the metal edge of the door is going to stop my plug from seating and I can't chisel that away. So I need to see what I can do to take off that bit of an edge there, and I'll take it off the plug itself. Okay, now I can see that I need a bit more on this side. Be very careful here. We'll take this corner out. We'll mark it. And the depth is about 3/8. So we need to take this corner out. Okay. I need this out right here. Okay, how are we going to do that? I guess we'll do it with a chisel right here, so we'll make do. Very close to getting our corner section out. There we are. Okay, so let's just see how that fits in. A little bit tight on the middle edge. Combination of a bit of wood residue as well as making the rabbet a bit deeper. Profile that, we've made this piece here, and it's going to fit in around the steel wrap of the door and into the pocket I've made. So there it goes, nice and snug. We'll glue and clamp, and then once it's set, use the plane to make it smooth, and we'll start again. Okay, so some of you might be asking what all this is. Well, if we focus in, then you can see the wood that I've let into the door, the new wood, and you can see the profile here that goes around the metal edge. And what I've done here is the clamp I had, the only clamp I have with me, the biggest clamp I have is actually, unfortunately, about 1/4 inch too small to clamp this. So I had to make my own clamp. So what I did is I took a strip of wood, I put blocks strategically placed at each end with enough space for a shim. So when I drive the shim in, after I attach these blocks, I drive the shim in, and what I've done is I put pressure and made basically my own clamp of the size I need just for this little project, rather than running back to the shop and getting a bigger clamp. So this is just my compromise and trying to make do with what I had. Okay, so we're going to carry on, and we'll remove the rest of the weather stripping here. We'll get back to basics while this is setting up. So here we go. Okay, we're back. It was a long day yesterday because we ran into some complications, so why don't we just take a look at the complications here and how we solved them, of course. So we come down here to the flush bolt at the bottom. Yesterday we were noting that the flush bolt had been hacked in, not really cut in, and was not neatly cut in, so that it was never going to hold itself properly or be able to be screwed. So we let in a new piece of wood here. It's very hard to see now because it's been plain flush, but anyway, I let in a new piece, and we can just release this nicely operating flush bolt for a second. There's one at the top, the existing one, and then the one at the bottom. So here I have one at the bottom, and you can sort of see here I put the weather stripping back on, but there's a piece of wood let in here, and now it's been planed and sanded flush. That's a new piece of wood, and then I've chiseled in this flush bolt into the inset piece of wood. Okay, and now you can see it operates quite easily. And top and bottom, that's the original one, and it seems to be in fine working order. So what we're going to do now is, if we come inside, we'll take a look at the alignment of the door. And you can see that the reveal at the top is different than the bottom, and there's a space, and how are we going to solve that? So there's an easy method I have, and if you go to your kitchen cabinet and you get a cereal box or any sort of box with not corrugated but solid cardboard, I cut off a piece, as you can see here, and we're going to use that to shim the hinge. In this case we can see the space at the top is narrower and the one at the bottom is wider, and if we look at the hinge side, there's a bigger space at the top and less so at the bottom. So what we're going to do is we're going to equalize those spaces, by shimming the bottom hinge and middle hinge very slightly to equalize the spaces, to actually pivot the door this way. And after we do that, right now we can see the door latch is working quite easily, but it's surprising that the slightest adjustment will actually possibly knock those off. So we're going to leave those like they are right now. That's original. Shim the bottom hinge and middle hinge, and then check the alignment of the latches to see if they still work properly. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, we got a drill here. We'll release the screws. We don't need to take them all out. Well, we see, as they should have, they've got a longer screw going into the it should have caught the stud, and the other screws are usually short screws. So we'll release those, and then we'll release the middle hinge. Not all the way, you don't have to take the door off. Okay, so we have a little bit of slackness there. So what we're going to now is very carefully, we're going to create some little shims out of this cardboard, and we're going to shim the forward edge of the hinge out this way, and that's going to turn around and move the door that way when you close it, and you'll see how it closes up that. So in this case, we're going to put one layer in this one, and we're going to do two in that one, and just see if that does the job for us. So I'll just approximate the hinge leaf size here. And you only need a small shim. We'll use a piece of wood so we don't cut into anything. So, using your hand as a guide, you only need a small shim piece. So say about 3/8 of an inch is plenty for the top. And we'll just try this to begin with, see if that does the job for us. So here's the top shim. On the bottom one, we're going to do two layers, so we're going to come over about 3/4 of an inch. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold that upon itself in this case to make two layers. And there's our length line right here. So we're going to make one piece slightly unequal, so it creates a bit of a wedge effect. You don't cut it all the way through, just partially, and just bend that over. And now you can see you have a shim this size for the bottom and one that size for the top. So we're going to slide these in. Sometimes better do it from the back. So we'll just come around and slip them in the end back here. You can see how you can just push them in. Sometimes use my utility knife to push that in. You want to leave it towards the back edge. There we go, that's that one. I'm going to tighten up the screws just slightly. I'll come down to the bottom hinge. Where did I put the piece? The piece is where? Where's that folded piece of cardboard? Here. And we're going to slip this one in the bottom. Okay, just be careful on your placement, leaving it towards the innermost edge as you can. Just place it accurately, otherwise it won't do the job you want it to do. and then tighten up the screws just bit by bit. In this case, the hinge leaf is not set in as well as we'd like. We'll just give it a bit of encouragement to seat it back into the rabbet for the hinge. So let's just check and see if that did the job for us. Okay, it's done a little bit of a job, but we need a bit more. So you can see that we'll just tighten up all the hinges again to make sure that we indeed have got the hinges tight. Oh, there's one here that's not. So it's a trial and error situation. Okay, it's made a very slight but not enough adjustment. So what we need then is to put another layer under here and another layer under there to give the door a bit more of a torque to equalize this a bit better. And you can see how it changes as you torque the door. It of course raises this, and the two long ones of course are still grabbing quite well because they're going into the stud. Okay, so what we need to do is just to release that, but before I do that I'll take my handy cardboard box again. We'll cut off one more tab without cutting myself, of course. So what we're going to do this time is going to fold this into 3 pieces to give us a wider shim, and the top one we'll use the one from here to go into the middle hinge. Using this as my cutting guide. And what I'll do first is measure the hinge leaf size. We have a mark here. I'm going to cut this now in 3, or score it. So here's our first shim. We're going to fold that over. I'm going to follow that slightly past. And fold that back. And that brings us to the 3rd level. And now we have 3 layers to shim the hinge. Okay. So remember to keep it towards the inside edge absolutely as much as possible. You want to make sure it's remained in the right place. You can just see the edge of it there. And here we're going to use the 3-layer one at the bottom. And we've taken out the other one already. Just use your utility knife, press it in place. Remember, keeping it towards the inside edge in this case. And see if that's obtained the objective. Okay. It's getting there, still not perfect. So it is a bit of a trial and error situation. I'm going to check that top hinge just to make sure. that it is indeed tight. Okay. Improving, but still not perfect. It could use one more shim. Now, okay, I can see a little bit of light through on the weather stripping at the bottom. That means we need to put something in the bottom here. In the end, after we're done, we're going to put a little bit of weather sealing in here. We haven't quite figured out what material yet. Improving, but still not perfect. Very close though. One more packer on the bottom would do. Alternatively, we could put a packer in the top in a different place. Maybe in this case we'll do that. So this will be the reverse. In this case we want the door to come that way at the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to pack the front edge of the leaf to send this hinge point back this way. Rather than in this case, we're packing the hinge on the front edge and torquing the hinge that way, which of course brings the door over at the edge. So here we'll pack the opposite. We're going to put one spacer in the front edge here. And it's good to see they used the long screws to catch the frame. Okay, we'll just rock that slightly, but we'll use the spacer we use at the bottom initially to put at the top. So we need to just rock that hinge a bit so we can slip the packer under this edge. There. It's just released. A little bit more difficult with the weather stripping. In this case we're going to probably have to shorten the hinge a bit because we're now dealing with the radius side, and it's going to not let us put that in. So I'll just take my snippers here, just cut the leaf off a bit. I'm going to pack that in here, or slip it in here. Oh, I got it around the wrong way. I need to go this way. And I'll position that with my utility knife very gingerly. There. Just check the position again to make sure it hasn't slipped. Very slight, but maybe just enough. Okay, that's evening out right now. You see it's basically a parallel line all the way down. Okay, now does the latch work easily? No, it doesn't now. It just is slightly... There's a slight bit more resistance than there was. So where is it hitting? That's the question. Let's just try and get an idea where it's hitting. Is it hitting the top, the bottom, the front edge, the back edge? Let's just see where that is. Okay, that's interesting. It's hitting, I believe it's hitting the wood because the hole was not cut very neatly. We'll take this off then and see. We'll change bits for that. You can see in here somebody has not chiseled the hole at all neatly, and what's happening now is it's hitting towards the top and the side as the deadbolt goes through. We'll get the chisels out again. And we'll neaten this up. That hole is not square, or not lined up properly, but we'll just see. Okay, let's just take a look at that and see if that works easily. No, it's still hitting, so where is it hitting? Okay, what it's doing, it's hitting the, it's surprising how much of a adjustment like that can change. So, we put a bit of pressure on the door, we can feel it's clear again. So, in order to take the pressure off the deadbolt, we need to change the two things we can do. We'll just check the pressure on the weather stripping first. Let's just see if there's any light you can see through anywhere when it latches here. Can you see light anywhere around the door? I do see the whiteness of the, here we see light at the bottom, I mentioned before, but nowhere else do we see light. If we're not going to see light, we're not going to have an air leak. And we'll just check the top of the door by using the chair to make sure that it is also sealed. No, there's no light to be seen, although a wee bit at the top of the door, and let's just see if that's where it's overlapping the, yeah, it's almost inevitable sometimes. You're going to get a tiny crack at the top, where the one door meets the other and it compresses the weather stripping fully. That's almost inevitable. The only way around that is to release the weather stripping right at that point. See if we can do that. So what's happening is this door is okay. So if we were to cut the weather stripping right here, it would allow it to not be fully compressed. Let's just mark that. It would allow it to possibly spring independently of the other door. Now one is going to work independent of the other one. This is now pinched, it's not going to affect that one. Okay, there we go. Okay, that seems to have cured that. So the question is, should we adjust the deadbolt latch or the latch? Let's just feel the pressure on the door. I think in this case we'll put a bit more pressure on the latch. So there's a couple ways we can do that. First off, we'll clean up this very messy chisel job on the latch. And then there is a tiny flap you can see you can actually bend slightly to get microscopic adjustments on the depth. So we'll just pull that off first. Those holes are very sloppy, so obviously somebody's played with this door a lot in the past. We'll have to plug those screw holes a bit first. Let's just mark where we're going to chisel to neaten this up. Okay, what we can do is we'll take some pliers and we'll bend this tab slightly. So by bending this tab, you can change the position of the latch very slightly. That's one way you can adjust. So a slight adjustment will be all we'll need. Just a slight bending, and then the latch will close in a slightly different place. That's one way to adjust in a very minuscule amount. We'll put these screws back in, and we'll plug them a bit later. Just to we're just checking for now to get the alignment. You can see the hole is much neater now, both top and bottom, so the latches come clear. They're not binding on the wood once they go partly into the hole. And we'll just check that and see. There's a slight bit more pressure on the latch, but not too much. And I think we've closed up any little air spaces, and this should now. Well, it still hits. So why is it hitting? Okay. It still hits there, and what we'll need to do is how much more pressure do we need? I think what we need to do is to move the deadbolt receiver slightly into the house to make sure that it clears. So the only way we can do that is by removing the screws. And then we'll have to plug those screw holes because we can't put a screw in right next to the other screw. So we're going to plug those with some hardwood slivers that I'll glue in. Or in this case, I've got some I have my assistant back. There's two holes in this case we want to plug. Messy here with the glue. Back at this point. And we'll pre-drill those holes. And I use one of these tapered bits. I'll also get my centering tool. So what this does is it centers the point right in the middle of the countersink, so you don't misalign the hole, the attachment. So there it goes. You go in here like this. There's one. There's There's two, so it gives you the perfect center. You take the drill and you drill into that. And then we'll put this back in place. Okay, I'll just use a chisel to clean this up a bit so it seats properly. Okay, let's just try that for a second. And there we go, it now closes freely, and the pressure is on the latch, not on the deadbolt, which is the way it should be. That should just float freely, just like this. Even my baby finger can turn around and unlock the door. The other thing to check is outside you need a lot of pressure on the thumb latch. You just want a wee bit of pressure, not a lot of pressure. If you have a little bit of pressure, you know that the door is latching and putting pressure on the weather stripping. So there we go, it's not too hard, just slightly comfortable. And then this, when it's locked, will spin easily. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to, we have these screws, we need to fill the holes like we did over here because they're spinning from having been in and out a number of times in the past as well as today. We'll do that top and bottom, and then just make sure, double check when we're all done that the alignment has not changed anywhere. And we'll clean this up a bit here too, because it's not sitting perfectly flush. I can chisel it slightly more so it seats neatly. And that's as good as we can do. These are the chisel lines from prior, and we moved this into the room to make sure that the deadbolt worked freely and did not put pressure on the deadbolt as you turned it. So the pressure is now on the latch, not on the deadbolt. Good. There we go. Okay, so we're just finishing off the job now. You can see we've painted, and just to review a couple little details in the end. We used some weather stripping down here because there's a gap where the threshold meets the door jamb here, which is actually on the double door is acting as the frame for the first door. And you can see the weather stripping here going up slightly above the flush bolt. In this case, I actually use contact cement to give extra adhesion on these because the weather stripping will dry out and they'll fall off, so that should be pretty durable. On the hinges, you can see they were packed, but not enough to actually see a difference here, but you will see on the door, the margins are now nice and consistent all the way up and down, and you can see at the top as well. And there's not huge spaces at the hinge side where we adjusted off of, so the frame would have been relatively square to begin with. And you see how nicely the door closes now. We're not forcing it closed. It closes easily. It latches on the latch, and the deadbolt turns easily like it should. You should not have to put a lot of force on the deadbolt. In fact, no force. Here we're doing it even with my baby finger. It opens and closes. The pressure is actually on the latch, which it should be. And there it is. No air anywhere. You can't see any light anywhere around the door. It's sealed at the bottom, the leading corner and the hinge side with those makeshift weather strippings glued on with contact cement. And there we have it. A door tune-up by Hugh.